Chapter 1. Cracking the Code. The Anatomy of Stuckness in Youth Ministry. The declining church always assumes that the solution to youth ministry is programmatic. If only they could get a good leader, if only they could find a great curriculum, if only they could renovate a room in the building for youth meetings. They fail to recognize that the solutions to youth ministry, like the solution to decline in general, is systemic. Thomas G. Bandy. He had done youth ministry earlier in his career, and quite successfully, he was quick to add. But over the past 20 years as a senior pastor, he had not once been able to establish a sustainable youth program in any church he'd served. There were highlights, yes, a mission trip here, a particularly effective volunteer there, and even a flash of success from a memorable short-term youth director. But the only consistent thing had been his frustration. After an exhaustive search and the hiring of yet another youth director, the one everyone hoped would finally turn things around, it was soon all too obvious that a snowflake in the Sahara stood a better chance than this youth pastor's new and improved program. That's when the call came. The despair in the pastor's voice was anything but subtle. He was weary of following one new idea after another, hiring one new youth director after another. He was tired of unhappy parents of teenagers, he in fact was one of them, who couldn't understand why the church couldn't crack the code for building an effective youth ministry. He was tired of his youth ministry being compared, often disparagingly, to the church across the street, and he could no longer believe that this less-than-stellar ministry could all be blamed on busy kids, apathetic parents, or hard-to-find volunteers. He was, in a word, stuck. When a youth ministry isn't working, easy answers abound, the most popular of which is simply to hire away a church's youth ministry problems. But youth directors hired to save the day often find it difficult, if not impossible, to live up to the expectations they face from the first day they walk into their offices. And as flattering as it may be initially to be branded as the answer, such an approach places on a youth worker a weight that few are called or equipped to carry. As a result, most professional youth workers move on prematurely, some finding positions in other churches, but far too many, like one youth director we heard from recently, leave the land of youth ministry defeated and determined never to return. He wrote, "I submitted my resignation as youth pastor yesterday. I can no longer continue in youth ministry or, for that matter, in any ministry. I'm not sure if it was the overwhelming sense of failure or God's call. I sure hope it's the latter. So I'm looking for a new job, not in ministry. Anyway, thanks for your time, but I don't see that it would make that much difference now." The tragedy is that it doesn't have to be this way. Building a sustainable youth ministry is not a matter of getting lucky. There is no secret code to be cracked by an elite few. No, effective youth ministry happens when a very consistent set of factors is put in place. And it flounders when those factors are absent. For me, the story of learning to move beyond stuck began the way most stories begin, with a little drama. In 1986, I came to First Presbyterian Church in Nashville after working for 8 years, both in a church setting and in young life. Having experienced moderate success in my 2 previous ministries and having won my seminary's youth ministry award at graduation, I assumed that the Nashville ministry would be off and running like wildfire in no time. And I was not alone. I could smell the church leaders' enthusiasm as I stepped onto the scene, the answer to their prayers. But after 5 years, I had clearly become more of a prayer request than a prayer answered. Despite my 70-hour-plus work weeks, there were few visible signs that any progress had been made. Only a fraction of the youth of our church were active in the youth program. I simply couldn't break the code. I prayed, I went to seminars, I read books, I prayed some more, I tried a variety of models, many of which described themselves as the biblical model for youth ministry. But nothing seemed to shake the inertia. We were stuck.